Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools, and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being, and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 290th episode of the award-winning Diverse Minds podcast. And of course, welcome to October and Black History Month. Don't forget the podcast is now fortnightly, but if you're missing weekly content, you have 6 years worth of episodes to listen to. And if you want my handy guide that lists the episodes with a clickable link, you can get it at bit.ly/DMPG23. This year's theme for Black History Month is power and pride. As for the Black History Month website, they state, power represents influence, leadership, and the capacity to effect positive change. It honors the visionaries who have led political, civil rights, and social movements, as well as those who have broken barriers in business, education, and the arts. Their legacies remind us that true power lies not in titles, but in collective strength, courage, and unity, the driving forces behind a fairer and more equitable future. Pride reflects cultural identity, heritage, and the celebration of Black excellence. From art and music to storytelling and education, pride is the heartbeat of Black communities worldwide. It's about knowing where we come from, embracing our history, and walking boldly into the future without compromise or apology. Pride is a declaration of the beauty, resilience, and unmatched contributions of Black culture to the world, which I think is so beautifully phrased and put. And I feel like more than ever, Black History Month is so important, hence the title of this podcast episode. And indeed, Black History Month is still important. And in a comment piece on the same website written by Alicia Omeke, she says, this Black History Month's theme, standing firm in power and pride, could not be more urgent. It is not a slogan for celebration alone. It is a reminder that Black resistance has always thrived in hostile conditions when solidarity was unfashionable, inconvenient, or dangerous. And I'm pausing there because I think that this is exactly what we're experiencing at the moment. And the last couple of episodes, I've touched on this. And of course, I do agree that Black history is British history, but the stories are hidden, often forgotten, and intentionally lost. So there needs to be a dedicated month of focus to this. So this encompasses education and awareness to look at overlooked history. And I want to be clear also and say education and awareness is not the whole answer. It's the start. But Black History Month is a jumping off point, if you like, that ensures achievements are recognised in the various areas and sectors. It looks at narratives and enables people to have a platform to share their narrative where Black people are very often excluded, or mostly excluded, I should say, from mainstream history books. It is a way in which we can dispel myths and stereotypes, so challenging misconceptions. And if people take the time to learn, there is more content available. Most outlets have specific seasons, films, stories, blog posts, etc. And I think the other key thing that we don't learn about in the UK, particularly in schools, is Britain's colonial past and its lasting impact, which is not covered, and it's not covered well. And especially in the last few years, it's been definitely buried back under the carpet. I think Black History Month also shines a light on systemic racism. I mean, if you aren't working in this field, if you're not that cognizant of it, it can be a really useful way to look at things in your organization. It can give a platform to do that. Ideally, it should promote dialogue and action, although I don't know how, this is panning out at the moment with people trying to keep safe, but also other people thinking we shouldn't have it. And hopefully it lights the touch paper for people to enact change. I think the current rhetoric that we're seeing is horrendous, and the miscommunication about Black views, empowerment, and Black voices is being shut down. And I'll give you 2 examples, actually, or 3, in fact. So the wonderful photographer, Miss Anne Harriman, did a video on his LinkedIn, and I think you can see it on his Facebook page as well, where he talked about the fact that it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago, no one is being booked for Black History Month. And why is that the case? So Miss Anne Harriman has a big contact book, and he said, none of my Black colleagues, friends, people that I know that are brilliant in the UK, talking about their lived experience, talking about change, that no one's being booked for Black History Month. And then I had the fortune of meeting him at his exhibition at the Hope 93 Gallery. Please do check it out. It's free till the end of the month. And he said, oh, did you see my video? And I said, yes, I did, actually. I watched it yesterday or the day before. And I said, it's really weird. And he said, well, yeah, it just goes to show how performative things are. So this is an example. And, yet in 2020, I know most of my Black friends and colleagues were exhausted and absolutely, shattered from all the events that they had booked on, even if they were online. Second thing, and this has been a topical thing this week, is the backlash against Lenny Henry's book. I say backlash, I mean the media miscommunication, misinterpretation. incendiary, I'm going to say incendiary rather than attention grabbing, incendiary headlines. So Lenny Henry's co-written a book called The Big Payback, and it's about support. It supports the case for the UK government to give back 18 trillion in compensatory payments. Now, compensatory payments were made, but they were made to the owners of enslaved peoples. And that debt was only repaid back in 2015. And so in this book, one of the quotes is that Lenny Henry says, all Black British people need reparations for slavery. We personally deserve money for the effects of slavery. And reparations, as we know, are measures to make amends for past actions, like enslavement, and can range from a range of things. And I believe, I've not read the book yet, but I believe in the book it talks about financial and other incentives that can happen to compensate the inequality that still exists. And interestingly, last year, 56 Commonwealth leaders and heads of government, including the wonderful Sir Keir Starmer, acknowledged calls for discussions on reparatory justice for the abhorrent, quote unquote, transatlantic slave trade. But yet again, little has been done. And if we look at Windrush, nothing has been done to compensate survivors and victims of the Windrush scandal. So I think again that I didn't click on the links, but certain news outlets are saying let's have a poll on should there be reparations. But I think if you don't understand it, the results of the poll are going to be very skewed. The Telegraph had a horrendous headline that, again, I didn't click on it. I'm not a paid member, obviously, but I saw the headline was, I think reparations can do more harm than good. And I just thought, who has written this? Something like that. I'm probably paraphrasing there. And another example is actually my own from 2007, where I remember talking to a friend, and I was specifically talking about enslavement. I wasn't talking about the occupation of India, which, as you will know if you're listeners, is one of my favorite topics, although, the current regime of India is a very interesting one, shall we say. And he said to me, this was in 2007, and I don't know how we got onto the subject, but I said, we really, an apology is not enough. And actually a lot more needs to be done, and part of apology should be reparations. I may have not said it quite that way. And I remember this person saying, oh, when is it enough? When do we stop saying sorry? And I remember looking at him in absolute shock. And I really like this person. And I said, it's not even started yet. So, and this is someone who would not consider themselves racist, who has said, I've got Black friends, I like Black people. And so this is the thing, right? And we know that liking Black people or having Black friends is not an antidote to undoing the understanding of racist systems. But this was interesting, and I wouldn't have expected this person to say that to me. So I really hope you're enjoying the content of my podcast and want to keep up to date. If you are, then why not join my bi-monthly newsletter? When you join my mailing list, you'll receive my white paper on inclusive language and mental health at work. And that link is bit.ly/ILMHCK. All right, so going back to this theme of pride and power, I think the key thing, if we're thinking about workplaces and what we're doing, and obviously we're kind of middle of October, so this might not be relevant for the month because maybe you've had things planned, but remember we are focusing on a Black History Month 365 approach. And if you want to know more about that, do check out episode 113 where I talked about this, and it's entitled, surprise, surprise, ensuring a Black History Month 365 approach. But please don't place the burden on Black employees. I think there's a difference from saying to someone, there's a lot going on right now. How are you feeling? Would you like to talk about it? Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. But to say, oh, actually, I only want to know what the burden is for you. Is this burden thing real? Or, what's the big deal? Can't you just tell me about X? So don't expect or place the responsibility on Black colleagues to lead, all the research, the discussions. Some people will want to do that. So again, if you've got an employee resource group, if you've got, staff members represented in the trade union who say, actually, I do want to do this, of course, give them the space to do that. But don't just, spin the wheel and say, oh, closest Black colleague, let me go talk to them, and encourage everyone to get involved. As again, I think Black History Month is a really, really great jumping off point, but that's the whole thing with awareness days. It's like World Mental Health Day. It's not just one day, it's more than that, but it can be used as a really important day to launch something or to change process or to have discussions about policy to then improve things going forward. And exactly the same for Black History Month. Thinking about systemic change, look at your data, what's going on, what can you shift, fix, change for the benefit of your organization. Talk about this a lot. And I think there are two elements, as always, actually, to Black History Month, and I've alluded to it in the first part, thinking about power and pride. So this historical side, unlearning, relearning, learning something new, and cultural pride for Black communities. And often the pushback I receive, as a South Asian person, when you talk about this, and I'm going to touch on my point about being South Asian and being so passionate about Black History Month. but yeah, I'm circling back to that. But the pushback is, as I've seen in surveys, so one of a big survey I ran for an elite institution, and one of the survey respondents said, oh, well, I just think Black History Month draws undue attention to Black people. Now, I never hear this. I do hear from certain Black communities or Black individuals that actually I wish we didn't have the month because it's much more than that. But I've never really heard it phrased by Black colleagues, friends, communities. It draws undue attention to us. Undue attention is devastatingly drawn daily through horrific stereotypes, mainstream media, and lack of cohesion. I think people having agency and autonomy and a platform to design and create and deliver events as they want to is not drawing undue attention. So I've never heard that phrase used by Black communities. I think it's really bizarre how people think it draws undue attention. As often pushback as well from, right-wing groups. Well, what about White History Month? And of course, there is a gap in terms of who's represented in quote unquote white history. So whose stories are remembered, and there are lots of missing stories around, poverty, low income groups, women. I'm not denying that, but that doesn't mean we go, well, what about that's the same discussion as All Lives Matter when we had the Black Lives Matter 2020 movement. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I think maybe as well, think the communications and the conversation around how you reframe this, and again, it's not to have a counter pushback necessarily, but it's what's the story and the narrative that you want to tell when people might come with this it draws undue attention. What about White History Month? What about us? Because sadly, in 2025, inequity is moving forward and not receding. And people are scared, as I keep saying, and elders are saying to me, we've been here before. And so Black History Month is about action for everyone, and especially those of us who have systemic advantage. We cannot sit on the sidelines. This year's theme of power and pride is very apt. I think more than ever, we need to acknowledge the truth and facts and understand the importance of our Black British communities as part of British history. Please don't put the burden on Black staff to educate you, unless people come forward and, of course, want to share their story or create something, of course, but don't put the burden on them. Don't just go up to someone. And also, if you do have events, please pay market rates for, Black educators and Black people that come in, community members that come in to deliver things. Attend events and read information available to educate yourself. And of course, a 365 approach is vital for changing systems and to keep momentum going. So creating a positive environment, of course, we know is beneficial for individual employees, but also boosts morale. So if you're looking to foster a positive wellbeing culture and would like guidance on creating strategies tailored to your team's needs, we're here to support you. So please message me if you want to. Email me at Leyla, Leyla, @diverseminds.co.uk. I really hope you've enjoyed today's show and shows over the last 6 years. If you have, please leave me a review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts on. And don't forget my TEDx talk all about the link between culture, race and mental health in the workplace. And that link is bit.ly/TEDx Wolves, WOLVESLO. Now, I mentioned the fact that, of course, I'm South Asian. Why do I care so much about Black History Month? And that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about in the next episode in a fortnight, because as a South Asian person, I have received negative comments about, who does she think she is? Again, I must say, not from the Black community, but things that I've heard and read about my passion for Black History Month. So yes, tune in. Please do tune in, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Maybe you're someone South Asian and you've had a similar experience. Do let me know. And the resources for this episode are the Black History Month website, so 2 articles, the comment piece and an article, BITC, Business in the Community, Race at Work, a really great 5 resources for your organisation, really workplace focused, and episode 113, ensuring a Black History Month 365 approach. So I really, really look forward to you tuning in next time. Until then, everyone, take care, stay safe, and a very happy Black History Month in pride and power.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.